Yes.
Hello,
Yes.
ma'am.
Yes.
Ma'am, should we join the assembly link?
No, it's not in the assembly link. Here in the Zoom.
Hi, Isabelle.
Hello. Hi, everyone.
Wait, didn't you go to Japan? Ma'am, didn't you go to... Oh my God, you're back.
Hi, everyone. It's nice to see all of you.
You still didn't send us the images of cherry blossoms.
I actually didn't get a chance to see cherry blossom.
It's okay. I've just been waiting for you to come back.
Yeah, well, here there's so many blossoms here in my
Yeah,
apartment.
that's nice.
Nice. Ma'am, I really missed you. I wanted you to come back after a while.
I miss seeing all of your faces and all the questions.
Ma'am,
Yes,
ma'am, you used to be, ma'am, why did you go, ma'am?
I had to study myself. So I had to take a little break so that I could study. So, yeah,
will
I'm
you
also
come back?
learning.
So will you come back soon?
I hope so. Let's see.
Okay.
Yeah, how is everyone doing? I know weekend is just
I'm
up
doing
next.
good. Doing good.
Good, ma'am.
Okay. Kendra,
Good morning, ma'am.
good morning. Good morning, everyone. Kendra, would we be starting now? Are we waiting for more people?
Should we start? Facilitator?
Yes, Kendra. Yes.
Don't you have time?
Okay. Hello, everyone. I hope you're having a great morning. Today, we're having a special guest, Miss Isabel Thomas. Isabel ma'am is a co-founder of Bhumi Women's Collective. And what do? They take tailoring waste and make educational toys. To welcome all of you, I would like to invite Devashish.
Good morning, all. Today's speaker.
Devashish, please turn on the mic by accidentally unmuted it.
Good morning, all. Today's speaker is someone special. I'm sure most might remember her. It is none other than our dear Isabelle ma'am, a former facilitator at Hash Future School and an auditor turned social entrepreneur and chief innovation officer at Bhumi. She is also a passionate advocate for gender equality and has worked on multiple initiatives to empower women and girls. Let's give a warm welcome and a round of applause for Miss Isabelle Thomas.
Thank you very much, Devashish. That is a very and wonderful welcome speech. Now I'd like to invite our guest itself, Isabel ma'am, to the stage.
Thank you, Devashish. Thank you, Kendra, for the warm welcome. I'm very happy to be back and to see some of your faces, at least, whoever switched on the camera. But hi, Akash. Hi, Razal. Okay, so can I share my screen?
Yeah, ma'am, you can share your screen now.
Yes, ma'am. You are the co-host, so you can.
All right, perfect. Okay, cool. Okay, where is it? Can you all see the screen now?
Yes.
Okay, so basically, I wanted to get an understanding of how much you know about gender equality. So anyone wants to take any guesses as to what it is? Have you guys already had sessions on human rights and the basis, like the basics of gender equality?
Yes.
Yeah.
Anyone wants to just give me like a offhand
I don't
definition?
really remember if we have, but I because Akash said yes.
Akash, do you want to just give an example or like what you think?
So, what is gender equality?
Mm-hmm.
Gender equality, where both genders, male and female, are treated equally. They don't say that one is stronger, better than the other, one is weaker, or anything like that. Gender equality is where both genders are treated equally and as the same.
Yes, that sounds about right. Thank you, Akash. So that's essentially what gender equality means. But I want to go one step ahead. I know I was supposed to speak about gender equality, but I actually want to go ahead and speak more about gender equity. So I will basically give you a brief about the difference between equality and equity and social justice. So these are very common topics. It's just the words make it seem a lot more complicated than it is. So let's dive in. Um, so what is equality and why did we ever have to define it, right? So just Akash just mentioned why we need equality, because in a lot of cases historically, there has been a differentiation between man and woman, men and women, right? In terms of the kind of work they were expected to do, the kind of respect they had in society, and even the kind of work that they were allowed to take up. Like in some cases, the work they were allowed to take up was not, did not pay as much or was not respected enough in the community. Like, for example, people say things like men should become engineers or like things like that, and that women should become nurses, which all of these are quite loaded statements because over the course of time, these have become the norm, right? This has become normalized, but ideally it should not be. So that is why we need gender equality. We need policies and we need to put laws in place wherein you can't discriminate against another person. So, like in class, would you say anything against any of your classmates just because they're a girl or just because they're a boy? You wouldn't, right? And that should be the norm as like throughout the world. But sadly, it isn't. A lot of regions and communities do discriminate against the genders. That is why we need gender equality. And so it was defined by the UN, by the United Nations, and they have basic human rights, which basically ensures that all of us get equal rights. That's essentially how gender equality came into existence, where they put down laws and universally binding laws in place, which would ensure that all countries follow it and that we would have equal rights. Okay, so coming to inequality. What do you think inequality is? I know there's a picture there. So
Equality is like that is in the same level, which we don't have one which is super high, one which is super low. Like like it should be in the same.
yes. Wait, who is speaking? I can't see your face.
Fatima Ansalas.
Yes, I remember your voice. Okay, I couldn't see you, but okay, good to hear you. Yes, that is true. It is when two people don't have access to the same kind of resources, right? So if you look at this image, it's quite self-explanatory where there is an apple tree and there are two children standing on both sides, but one has access to more apples because they're standing on the side of where the fruits are being born. So in our case, what do you think? Can you think of any examples from our experience?
As in, maybe like men get better job offers than women in some cases.
That is true. That is true. And let's think about just our education, right? You guys are all in school, which is great. But do you think all kids get that opportunity?
Yes, some girls
No.
are not sent to school
No.
because
Yeah, I'm talking about it in a generic sense. It doesn't have to be gender lensed right now, but just saying like all of you, boys, girls, you both get access to the school, right? Whereas a lot of people don't get access to any school because there is an inequality in the system. As in, your parents actually want you guys to study and learn and get places in life. Whereas in other cases, they might not have the resources, right? They might not have the money, they might not have the schools nearby, they might be coming from a place where it's difficult to access schools. So, and in some cases, it might be things related to their region or their community. So there are different ways in which how inequality comes into play. Are there any other examples that you can think of for inequality?
Yeah.
Money.
like Like,
About food.
Mm-hmm. Do you guys want to raise your hand because I'm not able to see who's speaking? Yes, Kendra.
One is money, some
Yes.
are food.
Mhm. Money is definitely plays a huge factor. I don't know who the smiley face is, but please unmute your.
It's about food.
Yes, food is also definitely an inequality that we face, wherein we get access to, so even the amount of food that we get access to, it changes, right? In different areas, depending, again, I think it sort of comes back to the money aspect of it as well, where you can't purchase the food that you want and to feed yourself purely because of that. Devashish, go ahead.
maybe in cases like inequality, as in some parents actually abort children based on the gender.
Oh, yes. That's a very good thing you brought up. Do you know there's a word for that? It's called female infanticide. So infanticide means killing them at like when they're infants, and it's called female infanticide. Thankfully, in Kerala, thank you for bringing that up, Devashish. But thankfully for all of us, it is not as common in Kerala because we have a good ratio of men and women. But the further north you go in terms of it has a huge literacy has a huge role to play in the kind of inequality that we see in our communities. So yes, female infanticide is also definitely inequality. That's inequality, but even before you're born, which is quite sad. Okay, moving to the next one. So now we know what inequality is. So now what is equality, right? So if you look at this diagram, you can sort of figure out what we're hoping to achieve. So it's the same situation. Yes.
Yeah, equality, it means where like people are treated equally and they get the equal amount of the same thing.
Yes, they do. Thank you, Akash. They get equal amount of access to resources. So if you look at the image from earlier, right, neither of the students had a ladder. But when you look at this, both of them have ladders, which is the resources that Akash was talking about in terms of the same resources. But still, the only one of the children is able to access the apples.
That's right. It's because like the tree is like this, which one
It is.
only can get it.
It is. The tree is like that, which is actually the problem, which is why I wanted to speak to you about equity and not equality, because equality is all about ensuring that everyone gets the same resources, right? So for example, if I don't think of an example. Okay, yes. So I personally used to find it difficult reading when I was younger. So I used to get help from another person who used to read for me. But the thing is, if I hadn't gotten that opportunity and that chance to that help, I don't think I would have been able to finish schooling at the rate at which I did. Right. So I needed that additional help, and that was given to me. But it was not equality. Would that be considered equality? Because in that sense, every student in the class should have received an additional reader, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I did. So that is essentially an increased ladder. So I'll show you what equity looks like. This is equity, right? So that additional length of the ladder was what I needed so that I could read better and to get to the same level of speed as other classmates of mine. So that is why equity is actually more true in terms of the essence of the word that we're trying to achieve in terms of
So
all of.
that means equity is like not just getting the same resources,
Mhm.
but actually getting access to what you need.
Yes,
Yeah.
equity is so different. All of us are different, right? Although we're all human beings, all of us are different, and all of us need different things to function at a similar level. So that's essentially what equity sort of accommodates for. So it's actually accommodations. So do you know what an accommodation is? It's when you receive a certain kind of help, right? So I needed that help and I needed that accommodation to ensure that I could study at the same level as other students. So that is what equity stands for. Equity ensures that everyone gets that additional help to receive, to be able to. So even this image of people being able to see across the stadium and into the stadium, if you look at equality, they're all given the same size, it's the same height of a box to see across, right? But you still see that the person who is on the right end is unable to see the view inside the stadium.
Yeah,
So that
it's
is
super
essentially,
short. He's super
exactly.
short.
That, yes, but so in the community, we have to be mindful of the fact that different people require different accommodations. And it's not a shortfall in any way, wherein, so the fact that I couldn't read as fast as my friends, it was difficult for me back then, but then I got better because I got that help, right? So it's no way something that you have to be ashamed of when you are getting that additional support. And you should never look down on people who you're giving that support to. Yes, Akash.
So equality is where everybody gets the same resources, but
Mhm.
equity is where everybody gets what they actually need to progress.
Yes, that's correct. Yes, Devashish.
So I have a question.
Mhm.
So what do we actually need? Do we need gender equality or gender equity?
I believe we need social justice, but which we'll get to. But of the two questions that you asked of equity and equality, I believe equity is what we need. Shall I give you an example of that? So
Yeah.
basically, if you're looking at gender equality and gender equity, there are government schemes that support the education of women, of young girls, right? That is to ensure that more girls do sign up for school. Okay? That is not equality because
That's
it's
equity.
that is equity. That
Okay.
is equity because that's what we need. We need more girls to sign up for school so that more women are educated, more women get jobs, equal paid jobs. So that is gender equity. So what we're aspiring for is actually gender equity.
Okay. So
Yeah.
that is like the big goal.
Yes. Gender
Okay.
equity is the goal. Okay. So I hope all of you understood. If you have any questions, please let me know. So we've covered inequality, equality, and now equity. And equity seems like the right choice, right? But actually, there's one step further, which is social justice. So in the beginning, all of you guys pointed out that the tree was slanting, right? The tree was facing one side and
Yeah.
it wasn't catering to everyone. So what we
Yeah.
actually need is to fix that tree, right? Instead of giving resources to individual people, what we
Yeah.
need is to make the tree correct.
So
Yeah.
we don't need equity, we need social justice. So everybody gets the same resources and they also get what they need.
Yes, that is true. That is what we need. Yes, Devashish, you have a question.
Not a question, but like, so is the tree in some way representing like modern day society?
The tree is actually everything. It's the system that we currently live in. It's the government policies. Sorry, it's the government. It's the policies that we currently have. It's the community, and you know how, like parents behave a certain way, grandparents behave a certain way, like the whole
Yeah.
community behaves a certain way.
Some parents love more, some people, so some of the child, so they give more to them and they
Mhm.
give more to
So,
the
yes, so
other.
social justice sort of encompasses all of this. Social justice covers government policies. It's basically everything that we are currently existing in, right?
Okay.
And we know that the system is unfair in a lot of ways, wherein there is discrimination. Some people do get preference over others. So that is essentially what we're trying to change. So social justice is actually our ultimate goal, wherein initially that tree was slanting, and that is why there was injustice. So social justice ensures that the tree itself sort of straightens itself out, and thereby everyone gets equal access.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Yeah,
that
yeah.
makes sense.
Okay, awesome. So some examples of social justice. Do you guys want to think of, can you think of any So I can give you an example. So for example, gender pay, right? Equal. So now there is a wage gap. I think somebody brought that up in terms of the amount of money that a man and a woman makes for the same job. There is a difference in the amount of money they get. So that's called the gender pay gap. So now there are laws in place to ensure that this pay gap doesn't exist. So that is, in a way, trying to achieve social justice because the system sort of perpetuates or like pushes for this difference in pay for men and women, right? But the laws like this will ensure that that is not there going forward. So that's essentially what social justice is. That's an example of social justice. Okay, so now, yes, so this is essentially all of the 4 things that we covered. Inequality, wherein only one child gets access to this. Equality, when they're both provided the same resources. Equity, when required accommodations and help is provided to those who are not able to access the same kind of apples, or in our case, education or finances or jobs. And the third one is social justice, when we're ensuring, trying to change the system, right? Social justice is when we're trying to change the system as a whole. That is how even gender equity, the basic human rights come into play, wherein the implementation of that sort of ensured that everyone gets access to the same rights. That is what social justice is. Okay, so that's everything. Anyone has any questions? All right, perfect. Moving forward. So now is an activity. Who wants to volunteer? Okay, Devashish. Anybody else? I've not heard from Abigail. Yes. Abigail, do you want to just use ChatGPT to find the top? Devashish and Fatma, because I already heard your voices, I will call you guys again. I'll take Abigail for this activity. Yes. Abigail, so basically use ChatGPT to find the top 10 best authors in the world. And if you can just, and after you have the answers, in the bottom, ask how many of these are female. So the reason why I'm asking you to do this is because when ChatGPT first came out, it was gender biased. ChatGPT did have the nature of, they were exhibiting gender discrimination. Do you know why? Because ChatGPT was trained using the data that we had, right? It was trained with all of the data that we had, and all of the data that we had was gender biased. That is why ChatGPT initially was gender biased, because of the data that it was given. Yes, Abigail, do you have the list? I mean, hello.
I
Yeah, it's generating.
All right. Yes, I mean, go ahead.
actually after Abigail says I can ask the question.
Oh, okay, it's a question. All right. Yeah, so that's essentially why I want to do this activity, because in this day and age, it is sort of mind-boggling. And thankfully, now ChatGPT has fixed the error. So now when you do search for these top 10 actors or top 10 authors, so initially, when you would search for top 10 actors, they would only show the names of male actors. And the best 10 authors, they would only show the name of the 10 male authors. And not because they're...
It only shows that.
Yeah, it is a flaw in the system because of our historical gender bias.
Yeah, so my question is like,
Mm-hmm.
depends on how good the authors are. It depends, if we take the 10th SSLC marks, like
Mhm.
mostly, the first 10, like mostly, okay, not all the time, but
Mhm.
most of the time, like full A plus will be like for girls, because like it different. So like, it depends on how they how they perform. No, top 10 authors also it's the same way, right?
Yes, that is correct. I mean, but when we're looking at, okay, so in terms of the top 10 authors, initially, they did not have a single woman's name, which is mind-boggling, considering that 50% of the world consists of women. First of all, the fact that they don't exist is a problem with the system. The reason why we need social justice is because girls, first of all, there was female infanticide. Girl children were killed even before they could be born. Then girls were not allowed access to schools, and even if they did, they were not allowed to complete it. They did not get access to college or further education. And when they did get a job, they were not promoted at the same rate as men and allowed to perform at the same rate as men. And therefore, there are less women who are successful authors, successful actors, and so on. But so the system in itself needs to be changed, which is why I keep saying social justice. But I agree with you in the sense that if it's just about the quality of their work, the list should be right. But now ChatGPT has changed it, which means there was an error in the system, right? When it first started, it was only males. So I remember when I first Googled the 10 best authors, it was 10 guys. Now when I Google it, I believe there are 3 women there.
Oh wait, yeah, I think yeah. One woman is there. 3, no.
Okay.
2 women are there.
Perfect. That's 2 more than what existed, right?
Yeah.
Which means that there was an error in the system, which
Yeah.
means that they did have to change it to ensure that they were not gender biased.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's essentially, yeah.
I have a question. So,
Yes.
like, even when the gender bias and things like AI is like machine learning. So, it learns from trial and error. So, ideally, is it human fault that the gender bias happens? Because,
What machine learning?
like, is it like human fault that the gender bias can happen in AI?
So essentially, like you said, AI is machine learning, right? And what is it learning? It's trained with information from our past. It learns from the information that currently exists to look at patterns, to look at trends, and to see how it could come up with an answer, right? So the basis of its knowledge comes from what we have fed to it. Does that make sense? Like, for
Okay,
example, if we had given a list of authors, directors, scientists, whatever, to ChatGPT, and if historically the list that we gave ChatGPT was full of men and not women, what kind of answers do you think ChatGPT would give us when we are asking for similar questions?
men. But like, what if when you trained it, like, what if there were like an equal amount of like women authors and men authors? So in that case, what is likely to happen?
In
Like,
that case, the system should ideally look at the pattern and realize that it's almost 50% and give us that kind of a response, wherein they're saying there are good authors, or good male authors and good female authors. Therefore, the answer that ChatGPT or the AI gives would also essentially be similar to that.
so like these days, is that happening or is it still the same?
No, now that's what I'm saying. So now, if based on Abigail's response, there are women authors, thankfully. So it has changed, but we still have a long way to go because in spite of the world being 50-50 of men and women, there's still only 2 or 3 authors in the top 10, which is not the AI's fault. It's the fact that we need more women authors. We need more women in political power. All of this needs to happen. And that is why we need social justice.
But this bias comes when they are not, playing the role, right?
This bias comes when? I didn't get it.
Like right now, ChatGPT didn't used to know about more about India or anything because US was the people who made it, and they like that. So it depends. The bias comes when we are not providing for it. So
Yes, that is
if
also
we are,
true.
if we are playing the role, like if women are playing the role in making AI, then they will also get get to fix the bias.
Uh, True, but the problem with that is the data that is being that is fed into the system is biased.
Yeah, but so that
They
is
can
that.
tweak it. They can tweak it going forward, yes. And they are working on it. Clearly, ChatGPT is working on it and it has changed. It's more a matter of hopefully in the future, the system does acknowledge that more women authors are required and politicians are required. And hopefully that does change in the future. That's what we're hoping to achieve. That is why we need to speak about gender equality, gender equity, social justice. Okay, I'm moving forward.
I got.
Yes. Yes, Abigail.
Yeah, so from the list that ChatGPT gave me,
Mhm.
there is only a woman named Jane Agrest.
Mm-hmm. Yes, thank you, Abigail. That's what. So I'm glad it's at least changed from no women to at least one woman author. I believe when I checked there were 2 or 3, but I guess the list changes based on anyway. So this is something that actually came up when ChatGPT was initially set up. So Bloomberg is actually a global information company, data-driven information-based company. So they wrote an article about this, wherein ChatGPT wrote the following lyrics. If you guys, any of you think this agrees with this, please let me know. Hopefully none of you do. So it went on to say that if you see a woman in a lab coat, she's probably just there to clean the floor. But if you see a man in a lab coat, then he's probably got the knowledge and the skills you're looking for. So they were essentially looking for someone working in a lab to help them with something. But the ChatGPT's response long time ago, thankfully, was if you see a woman in a lab coat, she's probably there just to clean the floor. But if you see a man in a lab coat, then he's probably got the knowledge and the skills you're looking for, which is quite sad. But thankfully, this has changed. So hopefully, let's hope for more progress in the future, right? Okay, now I want to introduce you to 3 words which may seem a little complex, but they're actually very simple concepts, similar to how we went through equality, equity, and social justice. This is similar. Do you know what privilege is?
Yeah, I know what privilege is.
You want to just give a brief about what you think
Like
privilege?
privilege is when somebody or somebody gets more like a privilege, like when somebody gets, how do I explain?
Basically, I
Yeah.
can give you
Can
just
I,
the
can I
description of
try?
it.
Can I try?
Yeah,
Privilege?
go ahead.
Okay, so privilege is more like kind of like something that
Mm-hmm.
you get something from the way I say it, it's something that you're like lucky to get. Privilege is something that you have, but
Mm-hmm.
not necessarily everyone else has to have. So, like maybe if someone can afford to buy like a computer for their education, but while the other one can't, the
Mm-hmm.
person who can afford the computer is having a privilege. He's having the privilege of being able to afford it.
Yes, that is correct. And also going back to a very basic example of the female infanticide, all of the boys that were allowed to be born had the privilege of being born and existing, because at the same time, the girls who were supposed to be born did not even get to exist, right? So that's the very basic form of privilege, wherein you were not allowed to exist. And thankfully, all of us have the privilege of existing. So what Devashish said is correct. Privilege could refer to a special advantage, immunity, or a right that is granted or enjoyed by us. It could be an individual, it could be a group of people. And it is also usually leads to exclusion, right? Even in the example that Devashish gave or mine, privilege usually happens when one class of society gets certain freedoms, whereas the other doesn't. Like in my example, the women were discriminated against and they were excluded. And many a times, this is not an earned privilege or an earned freedom, wherein I did not earn my existence, right? Being born was a privilege which I had, but I don't think I earned it. But a lot of other girls who did not get to exist, they were discriminated against. And there are many reasons for privilege. It could be Anyone wants to take, oh, it's already given, but anyone wants to think about what are the reasons why there could be privilege, why privilege could exist? Like for us. Yes.
Maybe because like among people there's kind of like a hierarchy. Like you have like, you know, when you see someone with a lot of money, you say he's a rich person.
Mhm.
So in that way, I guess like the social status that is not supposed to be there,
Mhm.
but society has anyways built it up, kind of leads to privilege, I think.
Yes. No, that is correct. Yeah. That is a way. Also, things like wealth, race. Race is also so like within India, we're all good. We're not getting discriminated against based on our race because we're all Indian, right? But the moment we go anywhere outside, there will be mild discrimination based on our race.
There are also some discrimination, like when like we are not allowed to have like more than one kid or two kids, so
Mhm.
they
Exactly.
might kill the third one.
Yes, yes. So there is discrimination based on race, gender, wealth, and social status. So this is essentially what privilege is, right? When you have an added advantage in comparison to another person or a community. So there is actually a very interesting TEDx talk by Michael Kimmel, where he speaks about how gender equality is actually, we need more men for gender equality, because it's not, gender equality is not for just women, right? It's for all of us. It's for all genders. It's to ensure that all of us get the required access to what we need. Yes, Devashish.
So like I have a question, and so is privilege necessarily a bad thing?
It
And like, is it something that society needs to exterminate immediately, or like, is it necessarily a bad thing, or like?
Do you want to give me an example of privilege? And based on that, we can figure out whether, yeah.
So the cases where like female infanticide, did I get that correct?
Yeah, you did. Good job.
Okay. So if like in those cases, being born is a privilege, but in more modern day situations with privilege, like being able to afford something more than someone else, or you know, getting better jobs, is that privilege like is it bad in some way, or like should it be exterminated? Should society not have this idea of privilege, or it is pretty much fine to be around? And
That's a good question. So it depends, right? So when it comes to privilege, if you are not hurting anyone in the process of your privilege, but most likely when there is a very rich person. So the thing is, richness is sort of finite, right? In the sense wherein if either one person becomes more rich and there would be someone who is less advantaged in that situation, right? So if because of your wealth and how much money you are making, somebody else is not disadvantaged or unable to access basic food or clothing or whatever they need, if there is no problem or there's no exclusionary behavior, it should be okay. But it is best not to have privilege for anyone in that sense. But even yes.
so for anyone, as in just imagine like two people of the exact same gender, any gender, the exact same gender and like exact same status. And if one guy decides to if someone just walks up to him and tells him, you know, you got a job in some big company, that is privilege, right? So in that case, is it bad or not? Because
No. As long as, so that is not, that is privilege, but that is not bad privilege. That is, he got a job, great. But is that negatively affecting this guy? Does that mean that this guy has to work in very poor conditions? If so, how privilege works is if it benefits you and if it doesn't hurt somebody else in the process, then I believe privilege is fine. Like, so I'll give you an example. So there is this concept of 4x, which is something that's coming up in companies, right? In economics. Going forward, there are some companies that are saying that the highest paid person in the company, like the CEO or the director, will be maximum paid 4 times the lowest paid employee. So that is where there is privilege in terms of job and everything, but it's not negatively affecting the lowest paid employee. But in case of Amazon and like some other companies, which are global conglomerates, the highest paid person is paid like hundreds times more than the lowest paid person, to an extent that the lowest paid person is not able to afford the most basic things. That is the kind of privilege that is not acceptable.
Okay, so it's fair if like some like a person who is higher ranking in like on say an office
Mm-hmm.
is paid more than the lowest like ranking person with a job,
Mm-hmm.
but the low like the person with the least pay can still afford like things
Yes.
like his rent and all,
Mm-hmm.
then that's fair.
Yes, that is
Okay.
accepted. It's
So
only when it's
basically,
negative. Yes.
so there's kinds of privilege,
Mm-hmm.
and privilege where none is shamed, ridiculed, or like being shamed or ridiculed or
Mm-hmm.
like
Yes. Put down.
shunted.
Yes,
That is not good privilege.
that is not
But
good.
privilege where one is lucky enough to get like something better, but the one who is not that lucky can still afford for his like survival. That
Mm.
is fair privilege.
I don't know if there is, you can classify it as fair privilege, but that privilege is accepted. It is when privilege negatively impacts people, then it is not. Okay? Okay, moving on to the next one. So apart from privilege, there's something called entitlement. Does anyone know what entitlement means?
I'm not sure, but I think entitlement. I am not 100% sure, but does it mean like just because of your rank or status, you're like given something?
Sort of. Anybody else wants to guess? I want to
A
hear more
ti-
voices. Yes,
you
please.
get a title. Am I correct?
I didn't hear you. Sorry. Can you repeat that?
Let's say I you get a title.
Um, Sort of, but so it's basically when, okay, so I'll give you an example. So when it comes to gender equality, right, there is this fear for men that gender equality means that men are going to take away, sorry, women are going to take away their jobs. Okay. So, Ayan, is that a definition for entitlement?
No, okay, like from my understanding,
Mm-hmm.
is it like the right to do something, to have something?
Not exactly, but it's close. So essentially, what entitlement means is you think
Is
that
it
you
like
are, go ahead.
is it like the fact of uh, having a right to anything?
Yes, it is that. So it's basically when where you think you're entitled to get something means that you sort of expect it to come your way no matter what. So
Like slightly spoiled.
yes, slightly spoiled. So it's essentially when the example that I was giving you was when there was this misconception that men kept thinking that with gender equality, women would take their jobs, right? And the fact that they think these jobs are theirs, that is entitlement. Like, why would you think that those jobs are theirs to begin with? Shouldn't those jobs be distributed to everyone in an equitable way rather than thinking that those jobs are theirs and it is being taken away? Another example of entitlement is, yeah, so it's even for like land rights in India or wherever, there is this concept of she is taking my land. And so this happens when um, parents are leaving property or whatever to the next generation. There's this concept of she is taking my property when it is equitably distributed, right? And that is what entitlement is. Entitlement is when certain people, not necessarily just men, just women, just generally when people think that they deserve that without having actually earned it through any particular way. So if you go through this definition, it says refers to the belief or perception that one is inherently deserving of certain privileges without necessarily earning them. So this is actually in a way similar to privilege, where entitlement also, it's an expectation of special treatment. Privilege is also an expectation of a special treatment where they get what they deserve without actually having earned it, right? That's what entitlement and privilege is. Do you have any questions about either of these?
I don't think so.
Okay. I know these two are a little complicated, but actually the concept of it is very simple. There are ways in which we can explain this even using our examples, right? Like, so for example, if one person was the class monitor 3 times a row, the fourth time, the person obviously assumes that they're going to be the class monitor because there is a sense of entitlement where they think that they deserve that role even if they did not actually earn it, because there might be other students in the class who might be suitable for that role, right? And privilege would be if that same person, because they were the class monitor for 3 times, they get more access to the teacher or they get more access to certain things. That is the privilege. Okay. Moving to the next one. This is the last. These 3 words are the 3 words that I wanted to get you guys acquainted to. So this is intersectionality. It's a long word, but it's actually very simple. Can you guess what intersectionality means? And I want to hear more voices. So people who've not spoken up, please speak up. What do you think intersectionality is? It's 2 words. Intersectional. Intersectionality.
Okay, so does it mean like maybe not sure like
Go ahead.
um,
Yes.
to the point that everyone is equal, or is that gender equality?
Sort of. So basically, intersectionality is that we're acknowledging that the world is split, right, into different things. Like, for example, I am a Malayali uh, woman in a particular age group living in Kerala, right? And each person has different characteristics and nature that they associate with. So essentially, there are so many different sections in the world. Like, for example,
Yeah.
there are Indians, there are Pakistanis, there are Chinese, there's Bangladeshis. This is just based on geography.
Okay,
Where,
so equality based on like all races or all status or like
yes,
all
you're getting that.
amount of wealth gets like the same amount of.
Mm-hmm. So that's essentially sort of what it is. So we're acknowledging that there are different sections based on gender, different factors, right? Gender, race, religion, region. So we're saying that we acknowledge that there are different sections in the society, but we're also saying that we have to look at each person and each community to see what kind of help they need. The reason why we need intersectionality is because we need equitable, right? We need gender equity. So we need to understand what a person requires. Like, for example, I think somebody gave, I think, yeah, Devshish, it was you. You mentioned that 2 people coming from the same background, same status, same gender were given an opportunity. But if one person was from a race which was not at the same level, for example, if one person was white and one person was Indian, right? Whom do you think will get taken for that job?
Indian.
I hope it's the Indian too. But historically speaking, in US or in countries where they did have a white supremacy, where they thought white people were more suitable for certain roles, that white person would have gotten the job.
But most of the
Yes.
CEOs right now is Indian, right?
I know, which is great, which shows that social justice is it's slowly taking place.
But actually, I also think that they are having like something like a pay something thing also like with Indians. Like they are giving a less like Indians work more for less money, and
Yes,
that is why they are giving the job. That
that is also
Yeah.
true. That is also true, which is why we need intersectionality to acknowledge that two people coming from a lot of similar backgrounds, but even if there's one section that they're not sort of aligning in, like for the example that we gave in terms of one person is from a different race, that alone is sufficient for inequality. So that's why we need intersectionality to ensure, even when we're speaking about gender equality, right? The way women face discrimination in different sections or different races is different. The way a white woman faces gender discrimination would be so different from a way an Indian woman or a person of African descent experiences gender discrimination in US. Yes, Kendra.
I'm very sorry to interrupt, but guys, please do not use the chat. It might get annoying for the others. So please do not use the chat while Nan is speaking. Thank you.
Ma'am, people in Africa can stay in their own place, and US people can stay in their own country. So there is no intersectionality there, right? So like nobody.
Yeah.
But how effective is that? Do you not want to see the rest of the world? Do you not want to go to places where you think there are better opportunities? So
But
back in the day,
Yeah, you can become a traveler.
back in the day, the reason why a lot of people moved to US was because there were better opportunities there. Because there was economic boom and there was development in US compared to India and compared to Africa.
yeah,
And they wanted to make money.
yeah. So, but in Africa, like if the case, like the Africans are going to US, and
Mhm.
US people they are losing jobs also because people are coming from outside also. So
What is that called? Do you think that is called entitlement?
I'm not sure what it's called.
No, I'm saying that if US people think that they are losing jobs because of somebody else, which is their jobs,
Yeah,
that is called entitlement, where
yeah.
they think that
They
they
have,
deserve those jobs over somebody else.
so they have the right to be
No,
uh
you
I
should
feel like
you should work
people,
well.
if we check in Kerala itself,
Mhm.
like lot of North Indians and stuff are there. Like
Mhm.
lot of them are there. In my place itself, 2 lakh or something is there. So
Mhm.
like, Malayalis who does this job are
Mhm.
losing their job, and they are
That
not taking opportunities from their own country to play.
that's because that is because some people are not working hard enough. Like that's entitlement. You're expecting, oh, because I'm a Malayali, I'm supposed to get a job offer here. You should work hard enough to the point that, like, companies take you for valuable and you get a job.
Yeah.
Maybe the fact is just that outsiders just try harder, maybe.
Oh, yeah.
They want it more. So, I mean, what you said is true in terms of the jobs going to other people. But the fact of the matter is that the people coming here are coming here because the jobs that they have in their home state does not pay them half or even one third as much as we pay them. So it's the same concept even when it comes to global immigration. The reason why Indians have moved to US or Africans have moved to US is because they pay better. And we all want all of us to get better, right? In terms of wealth, in terms of exposure, in terms of getting jobs that will be able to support our families better.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it makes sense to say that we should stay in our own country because we all want to make more money and be happier and see the world. But at the same time, it is quite tricky what Devashish said also. This concept of working hard enough is also sort of discriminatory when it comes to, like Amin was saying earlier, when Indians went to US to work, and right now a lot of Indians are in positions of power in companies because we worked twice or thrice as hard enough. We shouldn't have had to. We should have been able to work at the same level as Americans to get that same job because that's how usually promotions work. Like if Indians were not there among the Americans, all of them would have worked at the same level, and whoever worked had more leadership skills would have gotten the job. But in our case, we had to work twice or thrice as hard enough to get that particular job. So I think there is pros and cons to working hard and getting that job, because you're sort of also paving the way for future people who are traveling to US, because there's this expectation that all Indians will work twice as hard. And that's an expectation. And we shouldn't have to, because we're all humans and we should all be treated equitably. But yes, what you said is true. That is why there is a discrimination, not discrimination, but that is why there are more people. I mean, I'm guessing more women, more Indians in positions of power in compared to Americans nowadays. Okay, I will move on. So this is another example of intersectionality, wherein even in under gender equality, right, we have to look at people with different abilities, and we have to consider them as part of gender equality. So when you're fighting for a particular, so for example, in a lot of offices, there were no bathroom for women because there were not enough women employees. Okay, we have 2 minutes left. There were not enough women employees. So women had to fight for a bathroom in that particular office. But if they did not fight for a bathroom which could be accessed by a woman in a wheelchair, then that is not intersectional. So that is why we need intersectionality, to ensure that we're looking at all kinds of women, all women with different abilities, different from different races, and so on. Yes, Ami.
Yeah, so my questions comes from the beginning also a little bit. So yeah, equality in the case of equality also, like, there are some things that we can't change. Like if someone does not look good or someone does not have height, that equality is not there, and people like still have it in their hearts. Like from like like people who look good have more privilege than people who does not look good.
That is true. But where did this concept of looking good come from?
It's because of people how they think. Like all of them thinks the same way, right?
Not necessarily. So in India, people generally want women who are on the thinner side. But in Africa, they want women who are on the heavier side because it shows that their family has wealth to feed them, right?
Oh.
So this concept of one person looking pretty or looking ugly or looking fat or looking thin, it is perceived different ways based on your biases.
Oh, yeah.
So it comes from within. It comes from us, how we perceive beauty, how we perceive even height, right?
Yeah.
It is not perceived as a bad thing in a lot of communities because that is normal for them. But for example, if you go to the Scandinavian countries like Finland and all of them are super tall. Just genetically, they're all very tall compared to Indians also. So for them, having someone on the shorter side would not be normal, and they might look down upon them. But for example, in India, if we have someone who's too tall, then they're going to be talking nonsense about that one person.
Yeah.
So I feel like the way you perceive something as good or bad is dependent on the community that you're from and the biases that you have.
Yeah.
I have a question. Like, how does looking better really give you a privilege?
In a
There
lot
is,
of
I mean, you want to take this? Go ahead.
Yeah, in a lot of ways. Like, if ma'am just said like looking thinner is good in India and some people does not look, people does not like you see in Instagram itself. You take case of Instagram. If someone looks good and posts a lot of stuff, they get a lot of followers. In the same case, there are people who does not look good, and there are people who have disabilities and take advantage of it in Instagram itself. I don't like this, okay? They just get advantage because they have a disability, and like because they are posting of their disability to get an advantage, and like how is it fair? Like people with normal, then they are not getting it the same
That
thing.
is fair because they didn't choose to be born that way. They
Yeah,
didn't choose this life. It was
yeah,
inflicted upon them.
but they didn't choose it,
They're
but
supposed to.
people are supporting them more, right?
Don't they
Because
do
They say something.
because they wouldn't be half as successful as today if they did not have support. They need the support.
Yeah, so okay, so if we take the case of like good looking good also, they are also getting more uh
I want to just chime in here. This concept of looking good or not, that is personal, right? So the kind of people that I think look good may not be the kind of people that either of you think look good.
yes.
So this concept of certain people looking good or not looking good, and even this concept of disability, I don't know if it's so. There's this assumption that everyone has to have all of the normal abilities, but what is normal? Each of us are so different. All of us have different abilities in terms of the way we think, the way we talk, the way we walk. So thinking that one person is using their disability may not make as much sense, in the sense that they might be spreading awareness about that cause. Like, for example, someone in a wheelchair might be might be sharing their experiences in a wheelchair to speak about how
Yeah,
they need more access to
that is,
bathrooms. So that I don't know if we can perceive that as a bad thing.
but if we take in the case of gender equality, like toilets, you told about it. Like men's toilet costs less and women's toilet costs more. That is not equality, right?
But why though? Why do
Because
men's toilet cost?
men's toilet are simple to make, and if you have seen it, it's like going like it only requires a short space, and
Mhm.
also in the case of women's toilet, it takes up a lot of space.
Can I also give you another topic of, in terms of the research that has gone into developing better men's toilets, the amount of money invested into that versus the amount of money invested into even developing a women's toilet is very different. Like,
Yeah,
so another example would be a lot of medicines that were used earlier were created purely to treat men. Do you think that is fair?
like
A lot of,
they are researching on that because they get more profit. The company should get profit now.
but why? Do you think
The
that is
company
fair?
is not working for like equality or anything. They need profit. That's the
But
thing.
shouldn't all companies be working for equality? That is the social justice. That is what we need. We need everyone to be working for the people. Making profit is important. I completely agree. We need financial sustainability, but we also need social sustainability, wherein everyone has access. Also, I feel like I'm running late and it's already 11:05. So, Kendra, do you want to just see if we are good on time? Yes, go ahead.
It's fine, ma'am. You can continue.
Okay. Yeah, no, I'm almost done. I'm just giving you some of the reasons as to why we need gender equality, and then I'll give one last question and then we will be done.
Yeah, sure. Take your time. Take your time.
All right. Okay. So in terms of some of the reasons, if anyone has any questions, please stop me. And in the meantime, some of the reasons why we need gender equality is, I think these five are priority, where there is denial of dignity, wherein an example, this is not specifically to gender equity, it's just generally equity, where denial of dignity, right? According to the caste system in India, some people are untouchable, or at least were untouchable. Now there are laws against it, but there was a point where people were considered untouchable. They weren't considered lower than the worth of animals, which is horrible to even think about, which is why we need human rights in place to begin with, and why we need equity. Second one is unequal opportunity. I know we already spoke about this. There's a wage gap. We need to lower that. Then there's discrimination, wherein, for example, the inheritance, right? So if a man and a woman, basically if a son and daughter, after their parents pass, is given particular inheritance and they have to split it equally or equitably, a lot of the times there is discrimination where the men claim that the girl was already married off from this family, so she's no longer part of this family. So that is an issue of discrimination where they're not treated equally. The
Usually
fourth
it
one,
happens between older and younger
uh,
siblings.
I hear someone speaking. Anyone has any question?
Usually it happens when, let's say the son is older and the
Mhm.
daughter is younger. So
Mhm.
whenever this kind of inheritance issue happens, the older one will usually claim, or sometimes younger one will claim. That's the issue, I think.
Probably. But don't you think that both children should be treated equally?
Yeah, I
Like,
think that
yeah. So
both
that's
both
just
children should divide the land or divide the
Exactly.
inheritance.
But that is accurate. But in many cases, that does not happen because the male person believes that the girl would be married out of the family and she does not deserve the land inheritance because she won't be part of the family anymore because she's married off outside the family, which is a very confusing concept. Okay, the fourth one is resistance to justice. So there is lower promotions for women. There
Ma'am,
is,
question.
yes.
So I'm not sure if this is 100% related, but
Go ahead.
denial of dignity, you- like in older days, in like older ages, people were considered to be untouchable, like even like untouchable like than animals. So like what I couldn't understand is like how can an animal be untouchable or even a human for that fact?
So back in the day, they were not. So I feel like you might want to read a little more about the caste system in India. That it's a lot of information, but it's very interesting. It might push you towards the social side a little more because it's basically how unfair the world was when it was initially set up. So according to the caste system, there are different caste levels. It's
Yeah.
essentially sort of like classes, and the highest class was allowed every kind of freedom, and the lowest caste was not allowed any kind of freedom. The only kind of jobs that the lowest caste could even get was cleaning the sewers. That is still the case in a lot of places in
Or
India to this
or
day.
pottery as well, or pottery and all.
Yes, so they were considered untouchable. If they were not allowed to enter temples which were bigger. They were not allowed to um access places or toilets or a lot of things. So that is denial of dignity, right? That's basic human dignity, to be able to use the toilet, to pray in your to your god. So that is how denial of dignity works.
Okay.
Yeah.
So like how did
Basically, you
so
have to treat everyone equally, right?
Yes, equitably, but equally works too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, Devashish.
so another thing is that I didn't also get the part where they were even like placed lower than animals. So I could not grasp what was very low about an animal.
Got it. No, so in the sense that they allowed animals to enter church, enter the property or like enter temples and so on, and they would feed animals, but they would not feed a person of a lower caste, or they would
Oh,
never touch a person of a lower caste.
okay.
Yeah, that's why I was saying they were placed sometimes lower than animals and treated as such, as though they were not human anymore, and
Oh,
as though they were not even worthy of an animal anymore, right? Okay, so that's about it. The fourth one is resistance to justice. So resistance to justice is sort of when people in positions of, like, for example, my own family, my dad definitely benefits from being the man of the house, and my mom doesn't. Thankfully, it has gotten better over time. But when they got married, there was this expectation that he would not have to do any of the housework and Amma would have to do all of the housework. And why would he want to change that? Right? He is getting privileges that he does not have to do any of the household chores. That is resistance to justice, where you're like, why would I change it because it's benefiting me? That is resistance to justice. And even with lower promotions for women, it means that there are more promotions for men. So why would a man want to change that if he is getting more promotions? Right? Okay, and the last one is disempowerment, when there were less women in positions of power, less women in politics, and less just generally in communities, less women were allowed to speak up as much. So that's essentially what disempowerment is. And now, okay, we're almost done. What are some of the myths about gender equality and equity? Okay, the first one. Is this true?
ma'am, I can confirm this is not true because I'm horrible at math.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm terrible at math.
This is
so-
false.
Okay, so this is false. But this was a norm when I was growing up. Like, so a long time ago, there was this concept that all of the boys are just naturally good at math and women are just naturally good at taking care of things, right? So that is definitely false. Moving to the next one.
Ma'am, I'm very bad of taking care of things.
Oh, that's
Exactly.
false.
Good. So the first one is false. Second one, girls are more emotional and sensitive than boys.
I
Is
think
this
it's
true?
false.
No, that is totally false.
This is true.
That's
False.
true.
When
This is true.
girls, girls,
This is true and false.
so
You know,
we
How
it
is
can,
is
it
in the
true?
middle.
Please tell me
It
how
is
you
in the
get.
middle. It is in the middle, somewhere in the middle. It's
Okay.
not true. It's also true. You
I
know,
think
or
this is false.
some girls might be emotionally sensitive, or in
Yeah,
the other side, some boys might be emotionally sensitive.
exactly.
It's in
So
the
instead of saying
Yeah,
boys and girls,
sometimes.
we can just
Like
say that some people are more
this just
emotional and some
yeah,
people
yeah.
are more
this
sensitive.
just depends on like an individual. So I don't get angry very easily, but when I do get angry, like my anger is beyond reasoning. I
Mm.
become an animal at that.
Okay. So yeah, so that's essentially what I'm trying to say, right? In this case, like a lot of you already mentioned, some women or some girls and some boys do. But so that's why we don't even need to use gender in this conversation because it's just individuals, right? So
Yeah.
individuals and people just some people are more emotional and some people are more sensitive. But there's no concept of generalizing it using gender. We
but
don't have to speak
Yep.
about
when
You
testosterone and like I don't know how to pronounce it. Yeah, when it comes,
um
like actually, man when growing up will have an enhanced like you know like ability to control the sensitivity.
It's not
that an
an ability.
ability to control or are you shamed if
Like
you show your emotions?
how we can what can we say? Like we can be less emotional when we have the more testosterone. Like man have more testosterone, right?
Testosterone does not help you control your emotions.
But
It just,
in
yes,
a way, you can also
Ma'am, are we over?
almost. We're just
But
a
I
couple of
think
minutes,
in
we're done. Sorry, I
but I
got someone asking a question.
okay. So it's not really a question, but it's
Mhm.
like in a way it is true because of the way the society forms children. So like if you go to back to older days, when a boy started crying, parents or elders would be like, now, don't cry, you're a boy. And generally, when a girl cried, they wouldn't do that. So,
Mm-hmm.
in a way, that just even when a boy started growing up, because of the way society started molding him, he's like, okay, boys don't cry.
Yes,
So, in
you're
a way,
shamed.
it can be true because of the way society molds modern day children.
Mm-hmm.
it is it isn't like it is shamed. It is like the society is telling that I think he meant it like boys don't cry when they get bigger cause uh, when a boy cries when he was small, uh, like parents and all tell don't cry because you're a boy, and if a girl does, uh,
Same. Yeah,
the parents doesn't say like that. I
that is,
think he meant that.
yeah. No, that is exactly true. But when you're,
Also, but some boys also cry when even they're big, okay?
yeah, which is a good
In
thing. I
Yeah,
think people should show their
in
emotions when they're
boys,
young.
mother and father, girl, boys cry. That
Yes.
Because
So,
the
girls
way modern
sometimes
society
girls not cry.
for children, see, like when you go to older days, the way like you could see that children are a bit like soft clay. So the environment, the way they're brought up, basically shapes them. And as they grow, it's like you fire up the clay and it becomes hard.
mhm, that is true. And Joanna, I think you have a question.
Like when normally like me and my friends have like a game where we like
Mhm.
and then when like I win the game and my sister wins the game and stuff, like whenever he doesn't win, he's where all like the adults are like, why did you just lost to a girl, you just lost to a girl and stuff, like
Yeah.
yeah, like she's the girl so you should win, like that.
Yes, that is definitely gender. discrimination where for some reason winning against you is considered an insult. But it shouldn't be the case, right? Because all of us are equal and all of us are competing for the same kind of thing. So in terms of considering someone's win lesser than, or like for example, if I won against a boy, it would be a big thing because he was a boy and then I won against.
It's just equal. It's equal if
It-
I win against a boy or the boy wins.
Exactly. It should ideally be equal. Yeah, that is true. And yes, what all of you guys said is true in terms of when it's a lot to do with society and how society sort of, this is what I'm saying, right? The need for social justice is because the system sort of perpetuates this. Even to this day, boys are told that they shouldn't cry, which sort of which negatively affects them because as you grow older, you sort of control your emotions to a point where you don't speak to enough people about what you're going through, which leads to more problems. Like men go through more mental issues in their adulthood because they suppress their emotions growing up. And women don't because community wise and society wise, it's fine for women to speak about their issues and even cry. So it's healthy to cry if you have to, it's healthy to show all of your emotions in a contained manner and in a reasonable manner, right?
Is
So
anger considered an emotion?
anger is considered an emotion, yes.
So
Anger
shouldn't you
helps
control
you,
your anger?
you should, but anger sort of helps you realize why you need boundaries. All your emotions are
Oh,
important in some form or the other. Even fear, right? Fear is considered a negative emotion, but it shouldn't be. Fear is what has helped humanity stay alive till now. Like when we were in the cave, old, the Stone Age or whatever, like there were moments where we saw a lion or a tiger and we realized we are scared of it and we shouldn't get out. That is what helped us stay alive till now. So fear is important, sadness is important, anger, happiness, all of these emotions are important in the right amount. Okay, moving
what
forward.
about hatred?
Are we open?
Hatred, that would be considered a negative emotion.
Yeah.
But like sometimes it can be a good thing.
Boys
Um,
No.
cry a little bit and they'll become
I,
Good
they
sometimes
will
is
not
bad, I
cry.
guess.
okay, moving
Because then
on.
if you
One another big inequality in the marriage things, like when
Boys will
women
cry
can
a little
marry
bit at
early,
first and
like,
they'll
a man
stop
can
crying.
Can one of you guys speak? I mean, I heard the starting of your question, beginning of your question.
like when in the marriage case, women
Mhm.
can marry early and man can only marry later. Why is that?
There's no can. That is how society functions.
But the
You
rule is
can.
like that, no?
There's no
There's
rule like that in terms of it's
sometimes
more about how it's perceived.
society women are forced to marry early and like men are sometimes allowed to choose when they want to.
Like,
Like suppose Mahatma Gandhi was actually married at the age of 13.
Because at that point of time, all of the marriages happened at a much younger age. Okay. Also, because a lot of people were dying at a much younger age. But
Ma'am, I guess
okay.
not marriage in enjoy.
Hmm.
there is a rule actually in India.
The legal marriage age? Yes, there is a rule. Okay. I don't think I'll have time to delve into all of the questions. So I'm just going to go with the next one. It is not cool for boys to express their feelings or show vulnerability. Boys should always be tough and
false,
hide any signs of weakness.
Not
False.
false.
False, yes. I'm glad we're getting.
Not all.
Okay, next one.
I
Gender
don't think that
equality.
is false.
You don't
No,
think
that's
the
false.
previous one
That's
is
false.
false? Wait,
It's
who doesn't
kind
think
of.
the previous one is false? You don't think this is
I
false?
No, I don't think this is false.
Why, Ahmed? Tell me.
Because when you are strong, basically, let's go to a little bit history. So, in the in old days,
Mm-hmm.
boys when they grow up to men, usually they go to war. Am I correct?
So historically speaking, both
Yeah.
women and men used to hunt animals together.
That I don't know.
So my point is the version
I
of
don't think so because, like at those ages, like girls used to stay inside the house, and boys used to go out at, like, very
Girls is
time,
the cool,
very
but
old
boys
time.
not cool.
the,
Boys
I feel
always
like the history that you guys are speaking of might be more after society took implemented the rules of patriarchy, but historically speaking, when back in the days when they used to hunt for food, men and women used to go out hunting together. And by the time wars and all happened, by then there was already patriarchy set up in place where men were expected to be stronger and not cry and just be providers. And women were expected to be homemakers and be quiet and not have strong voices. So,
Yeah,
Ahmed, I agree with what you're saying in terms of the war situation. It did happen, but by then already the roles were set in place. The
Oh,
stereotypes were already implemented. But before that, in the beginning of, like, if you look at older like archaeological, what are they called? Like they extracted these bones, right, from like olden times. They realized that
yeah.
both women and men used to hunt together because they were both buried with their um like fighting hunting
Tools.
tools. Yes. So
Okay,
I
understood. Thank you.
no problem. So I don't think it is cool to say that boys should not show vulnerability because they should be allowed to. It's a privilege to be able
Oh,
to cry when you want to. Yes.
yeah, okay. Understood. Thank you.
I'm tired.
Okay.
But sometimes it's also like in the case like boys should not cry and all that. Sometimes it's impossible to do it for them, not just because of their conscience, because like sometimes like I've seen like when someone cries, people are uh, like they mock. If a boy is crying, they mock him, saying,
Yeah.
You're gonna be a man, but you're still crying." So because of like the way society keeps molding people,
Mm-hmm.
like some people find it, sometimes boys just find it embarrassing
That's
because
true.
of the way society starts molding them.
Mm-hmm. That is true. Yes, that is why we need to change the system. Okay, so gender equality means girls will take over and boys will have less opportunities. How many of you think this is true?
I think gender equality is
no,
not
It's
No,
false,
only
It
right?
should be equal.
and boys have more energies than girls.
Do
it
you
should
think?
be equal, like
Exactly.
both
But
should have,
girls is
both should have the opportunity.
You
but
guys speak
that's
one at
false.
a time? Can you raise your hand and
Because it
speak
should
so I can
be
hear you?
equal, right? So
Sometimes the boys and girls fight in the girls is
Yes, yes, Fatima.
Like both should be equal, like both should get the same amount of salary, both should get the same amount.
Mm-hmm.
exactly.
That
It's
is
It
true.
should be like one. Then if the girl is the one, then boys would fight over gender equality, just like women fight
Mhm.
over gender.
That is true. So this actually touches upon entitlement. Remember, we studied entitlement earlier today, where somehow boys think that they lose opportunities. They don't lose opportunities because those opportunities was not theirs to begin with. It's shared. It should be shared with boys and girls equally. Yes, Irene, am I pronouncing your name right?
ma'am.
Yes,
Equally two's fight in the not uh boys is the big not the
yes.
only equally two fight.
That is true. Yes, both of them should be considered equally. One should not be considered over the other, right? So gender equality is actually never about one over the other. Okay, yes, fun question. Gender equality is only about girls' rights. Is this true?
No,
No.
no,
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 No.
false.
should be
Gender
boys
equality
and
is
it's literally in the name, gender equality.
exactly. So it's for everyone. Gender equality helps men, helps women, helps people of all genders, right? So that is not true. Gender equality is not relevant to me because I'm one person and I can't make enough changes because I'm just one person. Is this true?
Well, like,
Well, you could
In the
share it
middle,
with the
When
community
one
and
person
get
makes a
people to
change,
help.
when
All
one
of you
person makes a change,
What
yeah,
the
all of you
one
person
guys?
around
person
him,
makes a change, but not such big of a change. So, like, if there are more people, like, together, that means there'll be.
Okay, so I was a
when
single
one
person.
person, can I say, ma'am? When
Yeah,
one
yeah, go
person
ahead.
makes a change,
Mhm.
I think the people around him will also get inspired by him and join him in making the change, and the cycle goes on, and after sometimes there will be a lot of people.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That is how collective action works. So even in my case, when I started my journey into learning more about gender equality, it was just me, right? And I saw how there was inequality all around me, in my own family, amongst my friends, with teachers, with the school, with like the community, my religion, everything, right? And I felt like it was a learning curve for me where I slowly realized that I could make the change. For example, I'm speaking to so many of you, and all of you guys are learning about gender equality. So it started with a single person, but you can do the same. You can educate. So I, at home, when my cousin brothers, they were not expected to set the table. They were not expected to wash their dishes. It was all my job, which was not gender equality. And so we started doing it together. And as long as you don't make it into a chore, when you make it into a group activity and when you're doing things together, it's actually so much healthier. So even if you're just one person, you can create a positive change. You can think about gender equality in the most happiest, positive way of all of us learning together. And so, in a way, it helped my cousin brothers because they went to Australia to study by themselves. And because we used to watch together, cook together, they knew how to do those things by themselves. These are basic human requirements. So, if at any point you are by yourself, you need to know how to do these things. You can't rely purely on the women in your life to do these things for you. And likewise, for the women, I know how to change a car tire, I know how to check for the oil in the engine. These are all things all of us need. There is this perception that as a woman, the boys are supposed to do all of that. For some reason, you can't change the light bulb in your room. But as a single person, we need to be aware of the most basic human skills, right? So gender equality is not irrelevant for any of us. And even if we're just one person, we can create change. Forget everyone else. Do it for yourself. Learn how to cook, learn how to clean, learn how to change a tire, not now, but like later in your life. Learn how to do tasks that may not seem suitable for your gender, right? Because there's nothing like that. There's no,
Just like my mom told tell my brothers to do the dishes and all.
we should share all of the tasks, right? It's about sharing and doing it together and happily. We can do things together happily. All right. Okay. Moving to the next one. Gender equality is about treating everyone fairly, regardless of their gender, whether they are a boy, a girl, or identify as a different gender. It means giving everyone the same chances and opportunities to do what they want in life. Okay.
Well, I
And with
guess
that,
it's.
I am done for the day. So, do you have any
Yeah.
What?
questions?
That was so long.
It was very long. I thought it was going to be half an hour, but it took way longer than I anticipated. But you guys had so many
It
questions.
took 1.5 hours.
I know it did take 1.5 hours. But you guys had so many good questions. I'm very happy to have had those. Okay, go ahead. Can I stop? Okay, okay, I can see everyone. Yes, ask.
I have one thing. So, like the part where you mentioned that it is the myth that gender equality is only for girls. So that's false. And
Mhm.
okay, so don't take this the wrong way,
No, no,
but
no,
I feel
please.
in some places, in
Mm-hmm.
some areas, especially like for a few people in my building, it is kind of becoming that way. So when we go down to play, you have to go through a door to get to a, like a play area. And when you open the door, it has like a lock mechanism. So either you need a key card or someone has to open it from the outside. So
Mm-hmm.
if it's a girl that rushes to open the door, some of them some of them will open, but like some girls will actually only open it once they've had their fun dating us.
Okay. I
Think
think
about it.
that's the thing, no? Even with gender equality, the way you perceive it may not be the same way a lot of people do it. So, like for example, even with gender equality, there are people who consider um, equality in the sense that you have to somehow make the other gender less, which is not true, which is not what we're hoping to achieve at all. We're hoping that all of the genders will be equal and working together, right? So, Devashish, I think that is an example that is very specific for your experience. So, I don't think that is definitely not what we're hoping to achieve. We want all of us, all of the genders to work together and be treated equally. Yeah. Anybody else has any questions? If not, we can wrap up because I know it was a very long session. Okay. I think, Kendra, that's it.
Does anyone have questions?
I'm happy about you being back.
I didn't hear the question.
Yeah, that's what I don't know what happened to my voice today.
She said she's happy to see you again. That's it.
Oh no, I was saying I'm so happy to see all of you guys. I didn't hear that question.
No, like I didn't say a question. I said that I'm happy to see you come
I'm
back.
so happy to see all of your faces too and to hear all of your voices. It's good.
If my camera was working right now, you could have seen me. I think earlier it was.
Yeah. How you have that pet, the thing, no? The what are they called?
Cinema.
Yes, them. How are they doing?
Yeah, he's pretty good, adorable, and I also got another little pet.
Nice. That's good. Okay, cool. I think that's it for the day, guys. Kendra, is there anything else?
Yeah.
Have a nice day. I'm not leaving yet. I'm just waiting for Kendra to say everything at the last.
Okay, everyone had amazing questions. So, Isabel ma'am, as a gift, we have a small memento. Can I get a co-presenter? Co, facilitator, can I get the presenter?
Kendra, you're already the co-host.
But it says disable share. Ma'am, there's two of me. I'm talking from the phone, so I think you made the wrong account.
Okay, Kendra, okay.
Kendra, you're already co-hosting, Ram.
Okay, now I got it. Now I got it. Okay, so I believe you can see my screen. So thank you very much, Isabel
Yeah,
ma'am.
but
So
it's
this
blank.
is
It's blank. Oh my wow! Yeah, now we can see. Just like yesterday, this is amazing.
thank
Wow.
you. But today we have another one also.
Yeah.
This was made by Inaya from Agnes Middle Grade.
Oh, thank you.
Oh my god! I can't.
You guys are
Stop
too
my
sweet.
voice disappearing.
Okay, I'll send these two to you, ma'am, on WhatsApp.
Please.
So
Yes.
can we wrap up?
Yes, I'm good. If anyone has any questions, please reach out to me. You have my details. So thank you, Kendra. Thank you for the Human Rights Committee for inviting me. I had the most interesting time. So yes.
Thank you to you.
And have a
Ryan,
nice day.
You
I
too.
hope we'll see you next time.
I hope so too.
Bye,
just
Bye-bye.
Bye, ma'am.
guys, before we leave, we have the vote of
Yeah, ma'am.
Oh,
Bye.
Roy. Are you
Kendra.
here?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, you can do the vote of thanks.
Okay, on behalf, I would like to extend our heartfelt gratitude to each and every one of you for gracing us
with your presence today. It has been an absolute privilege to convene this important discussion on gender equality, and I'm deeply honored to have had the opportunity to hear from our esteemed speaker, Isabel ma'am. Thank you once again to our distinguished speaker, Isabel ma'am, and to all who have contributed to the success of this event. Together, we can build a more just and equitable world for generations to come. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Noya. Once
Can
again,
we
a
leave?
hearty thank you to for all that have attended this session. Thank you very much, ma'am.
Can we leave?
Yeah, I believe we can leave.
Bye, ma'am.
Bye,
Bye,
ma'am.
ma'am. Hope
Bye.
we see you.
Bye, ma'am.
Hope to see you.
Bye.
Should we join our class back? I don't know. I don't think so.
Okay, everyone, please join back to your class, please.
Ma'am, but the portfolios. Not
Krishna ma'am,
open house.
Krishna ma'am,
Ma'am, but the open house. Ma'am. Hello. Ma'am, we don't have open house today. Ma'am, we don't